guys. Very excited to be here. I'm Rajeev, as Shruti said, a partner here with Sapphire Ventures, and very excited to talk to you guys about customer engagement, a topic that should be near and dear to all of our hearts. And without further ado, wanted to give the panelists, even though Shruti did a great job introing them, just a few seconds or 30 seconds to intro themselves and a little bit about what they do at their companies.
Yeah, maybe ladies first. Yeah, good morning, everybody. My name's Adaire, and I am a member of the executive board of SAP. And my board area is global customer operations, and I'm emphasizing the word customer because in this board area, we have responsibility for all of the customer-facing resources of SAP. Currently, we have a sales force of about 14,000 AEs strong across the world, and that's our direct sales force. And of course, we're very fortunate to have an indirect sales force that extends our reach beyond the 14,000 that are direct employees of SAP.
Great. My name is Todd Olson with Pendo. As was said, we're a leading product analytics platform, so we help ensure that your users have an amazing digital experience, so we can capture the behavior and complement that with the ability to educate users in-app.
Manny, Medina, I'm the CEO of Outreach. Outreach is the system of action for your reps. This is where your reps execute all their activities to make sure that they are on point, that they are productive, and we constantly remove things that they don't like to do and they're not supposed to be doing to free up their time to sell more and be more and create more pipeline for your teams.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Maybe just starting off, just to level set a bit. From my side of the table, it's kind of incredible the explosion of companies around all things customer engagement, whether it's prospecting, whether it's sales, marketing, or even customer support and customer success. Talk to me a little bit, both from the technology side, but the human side, take it wherever you want to, around how you guys think sort of customer engagement has evolved over the years. Maybe Manny, we could start with you.
Sure. I think Forrester and Gartner agree that customers want to get quicker to the learning and to what they're looking for. So the ability for you to recognize what the customer wants right away and show them what they're looking for and make it more of a self-serve experience and only insert the human when it comes to brainstorming, when it comes to problem solving, when it comes to trying to solve a problem for the customer is the world that we're moving to. And we're all, there's no company in the world that doesn't want to be called customer obsessed. But the only way you're going to become customer obsessed is by making a concerted effort into understanding your customers and giving them the best experience from the moment they meet you, from the moment they close, to the moment they renew, upsell, or cross-sell. I think that there is a very deliberate set of initiatives that companies are taking right now we're never going back to the old world of just like throwing software over the wall and hoping for adoption. Like now you have to be conscious of your entire journey, even post-sale.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think a lot of the trends that we're seeing is just the increase in the subscription economy. I mean, most of our consumers, most of the people that we work with, they have a lot more choices than they used to. And it makes all of us more vigilant when we're delivering services in a digital way to provide the best possible experience across all of them, because they can take their services elsewhere. And a lot of times what's interesting is we're competing with attention as much as we're competing in other ways. So we have to be thoughtful about how we engage with customers to make sure we, frankly, don't distract them and don't waste any of their time. So I think there's just so much options out there. I think we all just have to be a little more vigilant when making sure we deliver the best possible experience.
We are absolutely, as I think the previous panel discussed, in a data-driven world, data-driven innovation, data-driven business process, data-driven customer experience. And customers come to the sales process exceptionally educated in a way that was not the case, say, when I first started in sales. And so there's a degree of knowledge, a degree of intelligence, a degree of intellect in the process. So whilst I think that from a sales perspective, there's much that technology can do to augment the experience, both from the customer side in terms of their early learnings about your product or your service, and also from the company side in terms of how you address those customers. I also feel there's a very strong element today in what I would describe as back to the future. That human elements such as trust and the growth and the evolution of trust between two parties in a relationship is key to actually resulting in an outcome, right? The fact that you have to always be in a context of relevancy and in a context of value in order to deliver on the outcome that you set for your customer. These are, to me, regardless of the technological landscape we're on, are very, very significant fundamentals of a successful sales organization.
Yep. No, agreed. And I want to, and I think we're going to spend a lot more time around that trust development, the values-based sort of orientation around customer engagement. Before we get there, just would love to understand kind of the obligatory AI question. But just in general, whether it's AI or other, what are some of the new technologies or ways that AI and automation have really sort of disrupted or are bolstering customer engagement, whether it's your own company or other examples of things that you guys use?
So the interesting thing about your customers is that they don't come with an explicit API or description of how they want to be engaged. You have to guess. That's the very short of it. And the second problem that everybody in this room has is the fact that you have no idea what your rep is saying at any point in time. And so unless you have systems that are actually reading or listening into your reps, a la Big Brother, you're never going to find out. So you need to, this is where AI comes in. Like AI, for the most part, at this point, I mean, I'm sure it's going to change, but it's just an enormous clustering machine that is going to give you sort of like hints or flavors of what's happening in the world. So for instance, we did this work with Glassdoor, in which they were trying to figure out, how were the reps engaging with their customers. It turns out that the majority of their sales reps' engagement was dealing with negative questions that were coming from people who had bad reviews. Like nobody's satisfied with the Glassdoor reviews. Everybody would like them to be a point higher, a few stars higher, or would like that bad employee review to go away. So the first engagement that a rep has is to answer the question as to why are my reviews lower, what can I do to get rid of a bad review? But management didn't know that. So the rep is never trained to deal with that kind of question, yet that's the first thing they're talking about with their customer. So we run this work for Glassdoor, and we sort of gave him a degree of sentiment, or what are the kind of questions that the reps has to deal with. And then also mapping that out to like, what is the answer to the questions that lead to an actual transaction? And as it turns out, dealing with the objection faster and appropriately was the closest thing correlated to a win than dealing with an inbound, I want to buy me some Glassdoor advertising. The positive inbound had a higher likelihood of not turning into anything than a negative inbound dealt adequately and then turning the customer around, and that had a higher opportunity to turn into revenue. And that was not obvious. So a lot of these things that are coming to your attention via AI and via sentiment analysis are the non-obvious stuff that is money that everybody's leaving on the ground. So the purposeful deployment of AI in your communication channels will set you free, will give you peace of mind that your reps are actually spending the right time with the right appropriate persons, and that that activity is actually leading to either better engagement with your customers or actually more top line.
For sure.
Yeah, so I'll take a slightly different approach in terms of use case. And I'll also say that I'm a little more jaded on the term AI. I think people like to use the term AI when they really just mean insights or good data, or the reality is we have lots of data. We can now be really smart about it. People like to use the word AI when very few people actually know what that means. So I'm a little jaded on it, but. One of the things that we've done, which is interesting, is that we're capturing a lot of behavioral information from people who are using your products, your digital interfaces, whatever they may be. And we're starting to feed that and integrate that with support systems. So when tickets come in, we can actually better contextualize the problem. So for example, if I'm a support rep and I see that one of my customers sends me some issue, they're having something, by augmenting their interface with information about what they've been doing, how they've been engaging in your app, it speeds up the process. They can write back and say, hey, I noticed you're trying this. Do you need help here? Or how do I do this? What it's doing is it's saving the back and forth. Because the reality is none of us want to contact support. Who wants to, you feel like you're giving up This whole concept of when a product makes you feel stupid, you don't really want to use that thing again, right? And I do think that when we bail and go to help, it's one of those things where we're kind of feeling a little bit stupid. Like I feel like I should know this. I'm a smart person, and by contextualizing it and letting the support rep know, they can already start that engagement with the customer at a much higher fidelity. Like, oh, we know you're trying to do this. And like, wow, they know what we're doing. That's awesome. They must be expecting this, right? And I think those are the types of things, by marrying behavioral data with support data, that we can start to also maybe suggest things like, hey, based on what we've seen other customers do that have had this, here is a support article we can send that could address this, or here's a video they can watch to kind of get through that. So kind of helping surface some of those items, just again, create a much better engagement when someone does actually go to support organizations.
I think that there is a lot that we can look at in terms of our SAP processes and some of the things that you've described there. From the point of view of technology infusing, it actually infuses for us at every stage of the sales process. So rather than speak to a customer scenario, I'll maybe speak a little bit to how we operate as a company. Certainly, that kind of upsell opportunity, that kind of ability to be able to extend your value proposition in a customer is something that's available to our account executives. Overarchingly, though, we have a policy that we call, a program that we call Franchise for Success. And this is essentially a series of technologies, a series of applications, and a series of policies that create uniformity in terms of the sales engagement with our customers in SAP. And it has become part of our DNA. It's a very sophisticated set of processes. And it allows for movement of sales resource from one geography to another, and even from one lines of business to another, knowing that we're going to have semantics that are the same right across our business. And it starts at the very top with the segmentation of a territory, and how you appropriately do that in the context of that territory and what you have to offer, all the way through to the life cycle of a customer and the experience of that customer post a sales environment. So it's a very sophisticated set of technologies. Not every aspect of it, to your point, is AI enabled at this point in time. A lot of it is predictive, using the years of data that we have available to us. And obviously there's a huge opportunity for us to introduce this technology into these processes.
Yep. And on that note, sort of how do you balance it, right? I mean, there's automation, there's technology, but connecting with a prospect or a customer, as Adaire, you said, there's still a trust element. Happy to start with you as well. How can you sort of balance it to make sure that that human connection still survives?
Well, I think today, there's no doubt from an SAP perspective, we're a company in transformation, and many of you may be SAP customers and aware that we've had a traditional on-premise business for over 40 odd years. And that traditional business evolved a certain sales cycle. And at that point in time when the sale was concluded, quite often there would be a system integrator involved, and the system integrator then would facilitate the implementation of the solution with our customers. Now in the world of cloud, you have a very different relationship with the customer. And it's a relationship where you are being judged every minute of every day that you provide a service to that customer. And it requires not just the underpinning systems to support that migration, that's part and parcel of this process, but it also requires a change in thinking. A change in thinking in your sales force, where you move from a process in your business that was very orientated around finding a lead and leading to a transaction or a sale, from finding a lead and ensuring that you have referenceability, so that at the point of referenceability, you have the opportunity to upsell or to cross-sell. So it's much more along the life cycle and the value of that customer relationship. And that means that you need to look at all of the levers that are available in your company to affect that transformation. Some of them are obvious, that you would look perhaps at the compensation structure of your sales force and amend that in order to ensure that you're focused on customer success and customer outcome rather than on a revenue number. And others, of course, are the systems that would then support the sales force in making that particular change. And that's the journey that SAP is, right on it at the moment. This journey of ensuring that our sales force are customer first. And that is the program title that we have introduced in SAP, Customer First, which is essentially a program that focuses at putting the customer at the heart of every single decision we make. So an outside-in view rather than an inside-out view for our organization. And it's an ongoing process, and we're very pleased by the results in terms of, the first year of operation of Customer First as a program.
Great.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it comes down to culture. And I think having a customer, I think that's what we talked about a bit in our prep session. And I'll never forget, so small story, when I started working when I was 14, 15 years old at a bank. It's now part of Bank of America. And they had a rule, part of their Customer First program, 2-ring pickup. This is back in the day when we all use phones a lot more than we do now. And I used to see people dive across the desk to pick up a phone. And I think it was like 99.997% if we were above that for 2-ring pickup across the entire bank. It's like 10,000 employees at the time. Then we would pay out this big bonus every single quarter. And I was like, wow. At 15, seeing like people dive across desks to get a little bit of bonus, that was a pretty, I take that with me the rest of my life. So making sure we have compensation structures, making sure that if we're going to say that we're customer first, then we got to actually mean that we're customer first. And we've actually even done things like we're a cloud company like a lot of other folks, and we sign a bad customer, we find out that it's a bad customer, we will give them their money back. I don't want to carry around some bad customer. It's just honestly feels bad to me. I don't want to force someone to use this that, I don't care what they signed. I realize there's legal contracts, we'll figure it out. Sure, we call back the commission from the rep. That seems like a fair thing. But it tells the whole company that the goal is customer happiness. The goal is success and outcomes. It is not just hitting numbers, and or I guess it's hitting different numbers, right? Where we're kind of aligning our success with our customers' success. So I think, the way you compensate, the way you behave, the decisions you make in executive leadership cascade down. And those are the things that I think really matter to transforming the org.
I think also for a lot of our customers, probably very many of you here, the transformation that I've described for SAP is probably very similar to the transformation in your own company, because we see so many of our customers moving today from the world where they're providing a product or a service to the world where they're providing an outcome. So for example, a company that in the past maybe sold compressor pumps, now instead of selling the compressor pump, they actually sell gas per cubic meter, and that's how they build their customer base, and that's the outcome of their business today. And so many of our customers moving in their own industry to an outcome-based focus and to an outcome-based economy, that when it comes to engaging with their technology providers, outcome-based then becomes the core of the conversation.
Yep.
I just had one more quick thing before Manny jumps in is one of the goals we put in place this year is that we have a Net Promoter Score, an NPS product. And we set in a goal to increase across our entire customer base, everyone's NPS by 20%. So we figured if we can increase all of our customers' NPS, that's ultimately going to drive tons of value for them and ultimately drive value for us. But it's shifting the mindset. So we started having to ask people, like, what's your NPS and what can we do to help you increase it? And starting to work with those teams to make sure they're not only using our product, but other products, frankly, to be really focused on getting that number higher, because we know how much of effect it's going to have on their business if we do that.
So one of the best pieces of advice, and I don't know where this came from, was that people don't buy quarter-inch drills, they buy quarter-inch holes.
Yes, that's true.
So when people buy outreach, they don't, when you buy a piece of fitness equipment, you're not buying a piece of fitness equipment, you're buying yourself leaner, better looking, younger. So the same thing when you buy outreach. When you buy outreach, you're not buying outreach. You're buying more production for your rep. You're buying a higher top line number, right? And if we don't deliver that, a CRO will quickly remind me, what is that you do for me again? You know what I mean? So, and we're all moving in that direction. Like, you will have those hard conversations where you will show up and there's no company in the world that is not getting disrupted by some smaller, faster, cloud-based thing that can provide your service for cheaper. So the best way to compete with that kind of situation is to get your own operations to move faster, to turn your business inside out as they're doing at SAP, and think about from the point of view of the customer, are everything that you're doing aligned to their expectations? So for instance, when we talk about automation is for a reason. Automation is so you can free up the humans to go and do more work for your customer. So you can free up the humans to go have better conversations with the customer. So you can free up the humans to go get trained on how to be empathetic with the customer, how to do better discovery, how to be more emotionally connected, how to be more empathetic, how to be more curious about your customers' businesses. Because that's when the good ideas come out and how you can help them more. So the whole move towards automation and AI has to be for that reason, for the reason of having your team be more into your customers' businesses than ever before.
Yeah, and Manny, I'm speaking of sort of internal incentives and benchmarks, the NPS or the compensation. You guys also, right? You not only track revenue and all the P&L and cash flow metrics, but you have the activity rates,
Correct.
The engagement rates of your customer, I know, as an annual goal, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So we don't track revenue as a top customer, as a top company item. We track active users. And the way that we track active users is that we actually attribute activity to what we call a sales positive motion. So we have the parenting approach to customer success, meaning there is somebody in my company hovering around your rep at all times, making sure that they are generating meetings, they're generating opportunities, and if they're not, they will get a call, they will get an email, they will get something, they will get an action so that they are. Because I know that in a quarter from the moment of deployment, I'm going to sit down in front of the CRO, and he's going to ask me, what have you done for me lately? And I need to be able to present to them with facts and how we're moving the top line.
Right. Great. I want to get to questions quickly. Before we do that, just given the theme of the event is sort of the future of work, and this is open-ended for any of you guys. Give me a sense for any customer-facing person, marketing, sales, customer support. How is that sort of evolving? I know we've been touching on some of this, but how is that evolving today and as you look forward into the future?
I think that especially for large companies, your view of the customer was quite dissected over a period of time, becomes quite diversified into various different systems. You mentioned support, so you have a support system that has a certain view of the customer. Then you have your CRM system that has a certain view of the customer. You have your services business that has a certain view of the customer, and so on, right? And that has been one of the elements of the transformation that we have been undergoing, that is creating a single view of the customer, regardless of their touch point. But not just creating that, providing an environment which we call harmony, where our sales reps have access to every single touch point of their customer in the SAP arena, and even understanding the business environment that their customer is operating in. And I think if you understand a lot about your customer, it gives you the ability to be able to predict a little bit what your customer might need. And if you can predict a little bit about what your customer might need, that gives you a much more empathetic approach in terms of understanding how you can help a customer achieve an outcome. So I think that's the first requirement. The second is simplicity. We're in a very complex world. Innovation almost requires simplicity as a prerequisite. And if in your sales engagement process and all of the processes that underpin it, you can be inherently simple in terms of how you facilitate an engagement with a customer at every point in that journey, then that also helps in terms of the nature of the relationship between the parties and helps you focus on the value-add elements of that relationship rather than on, some of the more hygiene elements or hygiene factors.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll continue extending what Manny was talking about, automation. I mean, I'm a product guy. I mean, I like to build things. I think the future of work is not one driven by humans. I think it's one driven by our digital experiences. No one wants to really talk to humans anymore. We maybe in our personal lives we do, but it's certainly not in our future of work. So, I think there's so much data out there, great technology. I think a lot of our digital experiences and our products are going to be heavily personalized, where each user that logs in has a completely different experience than someone else based on what they use, what they don't use, what they like, what they don't like, maybe the time of the month, in terms of what sort of macroeconomic or situational circumstances. We just know so much about people. So when you log into a digital interface, there's just no excuse for us not using that to create a measurably better experience. And then our humans are going to be focusing on really higher order activities. Again, driving deeper relationships. The things that you can't automate are going to be reserved for humans. And I think, I was talking to a large cloud vendor that said, that was working with us and said, what if this page was 100% generated dynamically for every single user? How would you work in an environment like that? And that's a fun challenge. And I think that's the future. That's the world that I think we're going to get to. And yeah, it's going to be good.
Awesome. Good. Well, I want to open it up. It looks like we have a little bit under 10 minutes, so some time for questions. Please don't be shy. Fire away. Yeah.
Thank you. We talked a lot of, you mentioned outcomes, how customers are going more towards outcomes. And a lot of times in software, a lot of our customers, and I was a customer, feel like the ROI promises aren't met, right? And a lot of it is because they need to change their organizations to accommodate technology changing. How much have you seen you investing in being able to advise customers, either in your customer success organizations or with your people ops? Because that's an area that I feel is left as a gap in software companies. We're product people. And I'm just curious how you think about it and what we need to be doing and what we shouldn't be doing in that journey forward.
Do you want me to have it? I can go first and
Feel
then
free, yeah.
you guys. I think that's a great question. And in SAP, we actually have a dedicated team of value engineers who focus with customers on exactly trying to define the return on any particular program of work. We have been collating, and we're fortunate that we have such a large install base of customers, and over the period of time that we have been in service to our customers, we have been collating a database of benchmarks based on a variety of different business processes, et cetera. And for each of those processes, we're able to articulate a best-in-class, cut it by industry, cut it by geography, cut it every which way, and then that helps us define a value-based starting point for our customers. Also, we have an as-is, and then we're also in a position where we can take the to-be and look at the differences between the two and verify where we actually achieved the outcome that we designed and we envisaged during the initial sales process. I guess, your challenge is that it isn't always just that particular part of the transformation, but some of the other elements around it. For example, the capacity for an organization to consume change or even to consume software to enable that. And I don't think there's necessarily, unless my AI colleagues alongside here have any particularly easy answers to that. And we are actually, continuing to evolve our VE team. And the next generation of our benchmarking tool and our value lifecycle manager tool will have AI technologies embedded into it. But it's a heavy lifting exercise. We automate as much as we can, but it does demand a very deep engagement and very focused, as you said, on not just selling the hammer and the nail, but selling the whole. All right, so that's actually what the customer wants.
Yeah, I mean, we actually have we have a similar team. We're a lot smaller than SAP, of course, but we have a similar team with that.
I can sell you a system for that.
Oh, you can?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. But we have a value team that focuses on outcomes, and we've got a number of ways we deliver outcomes, and we work with customers to kind of figure out how to compute that and what the ROI would be. But as a small company, I think one of the most exciting things is our CS team has really fast feedback loops when they're working with customers and discovering new value drivers. Because we discover them all the time. We're a sophisticated software platforms, like I think all are sophisticated products. We learn new use cases, new value drivers. Some customer will use our product in a way we had never conceived of and deliver amazing ROI back to them. And we're like, wow. Everyone should be doing that. So that's the one thing we have to learn is how do you create really fast feedback loops from when someone does something amazing and is, and has quantifiable results. How do we then disseminate that across all of our customers so that all of them can get that same value? And then it increases the overall value we're delivering back to everyone. And I think that's a challenge, and a lot of that's just education, communication, and then again, creating like a repository and library of these value drivers that you're delivering.
So the hardest thing to, sorry.
I was just going to ask how you manage if what that that piece of feedback has actually created a competitive differentiator for that customer in terms of how they're using your software.
It has,
Yeah.
and we don't manage it well right now. So spreadsheets and other things, but it's something that we're starting to see more and more.
Yeah.
So.
No, so I think that everybody is either a recipient or a purveyor of digital transformation to some degree. So, and the hardest thing about change is that you're not buying top down anymore. Nobody is, as far as I know. The days of selling at the golf course or at Davos, at least for SaaS-based companies like us, are kind of over. So you have to win the hearts and minds of everybody involved with your software, from the user to your buyer to their manager to the influencer to the coach, like the entire organization across. So one of the things that we do really early is acknowledge the fact that there will be some amount of change management that has to come with a sale, and involve everybody, like everybody we can. So we have, of course, an onboarding team and a success team, et cetera, but we bring in other customers who have deployed the tool as part of the implementation cycle to explain, of the roadblocks you're going to be running into. We bring in consultants sometimes to at least pitch their services in case they run into other problems. This is a surrounding kind of situation that I don't think, at least in my experience, there is a one size fit all. I can tell you all day long about ROI and how great this is going to be after you're done, but you have to go and convince 10 other people in your company who could be blocker or undermine the project if they're not addressed. So I think it's a quintessential human problem that you're not going to get away from, but having peers and other ways to surround the problem will get you far along.
Well said. Yeah. Yep. Or, go ahead.
So this morning we talked about the fact that now close to 80% of CIOs, contemporary CIOs, touch customers, which is obviously very different than years past. What advice would you have to this audience, which is not necessarily your sales audience or customer success audience, but the CIOs who enable all that? What advice would you have them in terms of keep pushing the organization in the direction that you're talking about?
We make tremendous use of our CIO in customer engagement scenarios, and we make tremendous use of our HR officer and our CFO and our marketing officer, because when you are able to put a practitioner in front of another customer and from a space of deep experience, they can explain the challenges of an implementation journey or a transformation journey, not as a salesperson, but as a practitioner of that journey. For us, that's been an incredible asset. I would definitely encourage CIOs in the room to have as much customer-facing engagement as possible, because it does help you understand then how, certainly the experience that we've had, is how the underpinning systems of our company need to continue to evolve to support based on the two-way piece of feedback that we have from these CIO to CIO connects. So I found them to be exceptionally valuable, and we use them extensively.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on your business, of course, and what you're trying to get out of the customer touch points. I mean, I guess my first piece of advice is just make sure you listen a lot more than you talk. So, because I think there's always a lot more. Whenever I spend the time with customers, I spend a lot more time just getting feedback than I am sharing more about our vision. But then the second piece is in selling the company and the brand. I mean, we buy now brands. I mean, there's products and things like that, but we want to invest in companies. And we're seeing that a lot more brand loyalty, I think, than before. So you're a brand ambassador, and you're out there, and you represent the brand well and sell the vision of the company because they're buying you and the company.
There's one more question.
Yeah, let's get to one more. I think we're running up on time, but I think we can squeeze in one more.
Yes.
So it's me again. So far we've been talking about an experience between the customer and the company, but so many examples in the world today involve multiple companies in the delivery of a service or delivery of an outcome, whether it's, it started out as an apple and then it's delivered to my doorstep by a transportation and packaging and everything else. So, or the more complicated scenarios where you see technology implementations gone wrong and everybody's pointing their fingers at each other. So my question is this: how do you see the changing dynamics between companies with each other in partnerships to service the customer in this model?
I think it's incredibly evolving. If I look, for example, at the SAP competitive landscape, that's changed exponentially in the last 4 years, and not only that, but the type of partnerships that we've been participating in has also changed exponentially over that period of time. And I think there's a recognition, certainly in the industry, that there's a role for companies to cooperate on particularly significant challenges. And even though those companies may or may not be ultimate competitors at one point in time, that there is a role for that kind of cooperation. I think only as recently as last week, SAP announced an open data initiative with Microsoft, with Adobe, and with SAP being the first participants in a platform that the objective of it is around, helping to facilitate the movement of data as it moves between different technical environments and different platforms in support of a business process. For example, if we think about it in the supply chain, or we think about inventory management, there can be lots of touch points in terms of how the data moves in and out of your organization, and that's what that initiative is about. 3 companies initially on the platform. We're hoping that others will join us. We're all going to put engineering expertise into solving that problem, but perhaps many of the companies that join us could actually be SAP competitors, and that's fine, because I think that is the world that we are operating in today. And it will be up to every company to define its own value proposition in the context of solving the whole, all right? Because no company, I don't think, can manage those complex processes today individually in a stream of one.
So I also think that there's going to be as you see more, you will see a proliferation of partners that do smaller pieces of the value chain. And I know this sounds counterintuitive because you're as a recipient of that, I want the problem to go away. I want somebody to be in charge of everything. But the reality is that your customer-facing problems or your digital transformation problems tend to be complex and tend to be siloed and tend to be across your organization, and they all have different flavors. And if you really want to unleash and release innovation, you're going to have to let them choose different partners, different technologies, different tasks that fit their problem. So the one size fit all is going to go away in exchange of point solutions that sort of allow you to iterate towards the resolution of the problem. The 3-year cycles of implementations with lofty goals and the Deloitte or Accenture, whatever involved, are going to be scoped down to small consultancy with a small project to deliver in 60 days and see how that works, or it doesn't. And then the cost is low, the risk is low, and the payout is high.
Good. This is great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.